It's interesting because what I think happens in elitist brain is the perfect example of how love and hate are basically the same emotion, but just on opposite ends of the spectrum. Even these two pieces, they kind of match. They kind of don't, but do you see what I'm trying to go for? Like I could just make a huge dubstep wall. So here's how the wall is looking right now. I added a bunch of like speaker boxes over there. But yeah, all of these are supposed to be dubstep, except this one. This one's hard techno, actually. I also made this painting right here, which I ended up calling the gray space creature, but in my head it's kind of like the Mala creature. I was listening to a bunch of his sets before going to the show, and I made this painting kind of for that, I guess. I've mentioned this a little previously, but over the past few months I've been really inspired by music. I started raving last year, so I finally got to see so many of my favorite artists from all kinds of genres. I'm so damn happy right now because all my life I've just been watching YouTube sets, and now I can actually witness my favorite music live. So it's such a beautiful thing. It's almost like once again I've fallen in love deeply with the music, and going out to all these events and talking to so many different people, hearing them share their stories, share their authentic love for music. I just found myself immersed in this loving community of people who just love art. I'm not even from like a big rave city, I guess you can say. I live in Toronto, so the rave community isn't as big as some other places, but regardless how small, the community here is still very strong and very loving. So right now I mostly listen to electronic genres, and I've been discovering so much cool music because there's so much good stuff getting released right now. When it comes to my taste in music, dubstep was one of my like all-time favorite genres, one of the first genres that I ever gotten into. But over time I got into metal, and for some reason that community made me believe that I can't listen to anything that was like mildly happy or mainstream. So for a while I kept my real music taste hidden until I went to my first rave, and I realized that I've been lying to myself this entire time. So I reconnected with my real interests, reconnected with my love for EDM, and honestly that reconnected me with my inner child too. Allowing myself to explore dubstep in particular again, I've become so inspired because it's such a versatile and expressive genre, and it's gone through so much. Over the last year I got to see so many amazing dubstep shows, and I drew all of them. But as you can see, all of these look completely different from one another. Although all are depicting dubstep artists, the way I see the music is drastically different, because the music is drastically different. Komodo came around earlier this year, which was really good. He has like that kind of old school beep boop. But he kind of started off the inspiration, and then Mala got announced, and I lost my mind.
Some boy have to run when they get stuck in a skin that on them. 45 pounds of on them. Rapping the coffee shop.
Mala was insane because I've never seen him live before, so this was my first time. And fuck, it was good.
Guidance.
If you've ever been to a Mala show, then you know that bass is just something else. And I was right up in front of the speaker. I was eating that shit up.
But what the did I experience? What the that was the most insane. I gotta undo all of this shit that I put in my hair. He played jackhammer. The sound system was just something else. And like, Distinct Motive was on right before. This is actually like one of the best like rave experiences that I've ever had in my life. My makeup's like half off too. I thought I did a better job at doing that.
I've come to conclude that the sound system and the bass was like the key thing for me at Mala. This is just a little quick ink drawing I did. It's very loose, very rough, but this is like the outside of the speaker. I was able to like grab onto the edges, onto like the little wood panels. Picture this as your field of vision for the entire night. Hearing Mala's sound, like his production on these 40 hertz speakers, it was so loud, so good. I had earplugs in. It really felt like I was having like an auditory experience, more gesture-like cube. So I did that, and then like the extra pieces that I was talking about to like put it up on my wall. So let's see where this goes. Alright, there. So this space creature painting, along with all these ink drawings, were done throughout last year in response to all this good classic dubstep I was hearing. But the black and white depictions to me are very specific to that older kind of style of dubstep that Mala and Komodo have. Other dubstep is a lot more colorful. When talking about dubstep, there's, first of all, so much that goes in within that category. Like, that's one thing that just amazed me from the start. One thing that I wasn't expecting to find is like extremely soft and atmospheric stuff. Because the old school dubstep is like kind of slower, grungier, more mysterious. It really seems like alien to me, but that's just because every track is so different and so unique. It seems like they're speaking in their own language. Also, because of how clean and well produced the mixes are, I just hear the sounds as very sharp and like precise. That's why I use a lot of like geometric shapes and like hard corners, hard edges, sharp triangles, like that kind of stuff, because it really seems like it's a solid thing in existence, if that makes any sense. It sounds kind of funny, but that's genuinely how I see it. Like the way I imagine it is like there's like a little void, right? And then there's just like little dots, little shapes and swirls that start coming out, and like as the music progresses I see them like playing around, you know, just appearing, disappearing. They're like literally just entering into existence and disappearing. Like the way I visually depict the music is in black and white. Like the idea of black and white together like seems very contrasting, but there's a lot of distinguishing like sounds and elements that you can make out in the music. The little red detailing is like the more aggressive kind of stuff. Stuff like Bar 9, Caspa, Rusko, that kind of dubstep that has a little bit more of like that tear out kind of sounding element to it, I guess. That kind of dubstep is less mysterious and more like bloody, made to sound a little bit more aggressive, so that's why the red comes out when I listen to it. When it comes to like the harder dubstep and like rhythm, I see that as a lot more colorful. Like there's a lot more variations to the kind of stuff that I see. I drew this after the Subtronics show. Or just Subtronic sounds like this, where it's like cool toned.
Around 11 minutes in all parts.
Yeah, so I drew this after the Subtronics show. These colors came out and I just drew some fun little shapes. And like this color scheme in particular, it really screams Subtronics to me. So that circle painting that I did using the same colors, although it's not like depicting Subtronics, like the colors I use, they're very much still reminiscent of that. So in a way, that circle painting's kind of also Subtronics for my brain. Very bold, very sharp, has a lot going on. Definitely rhythm, like this is rhythm. Womp womp. There's a lot more going on in the music than in the old school kind of stuff, so there's just a lot more colors. I really don't know how to explain this other than the fact that there's a lot more colors in the music, because I see the colors. God, how do I talk about this? I gotta try to find a way to describe my synesthesia better. I don't know how to do this. This one's like Zed's Dead. I guess the more melodic the music is, the more smooth or like the more natural the lines are, but like the more aggressive and the sharper the sound, then the sharper the shapes. But the colors really depend on the track and like the melody. Like I have a yellow one right here, but this is for a very specific track. This is Sunlight by Modestep. But yeah, the colors vary, the way I like separate the images vary. I'm really trying to describe like my thoughts, but my thoughts, the way I draw the music is how I see the music. But the way I use colors in my works is very symbolic. I just don't know how to explain it. Like, it makes sense to me. The only way I can describe the music is with the colors. That doesn't do anything for you, but for me, for me it makes perfect sense. But for you, you're like, what is she on? Colors, shapes and colors. And then this one's actually back to like the more kind of more classic dubstep. But like, do you see the difference between this and this? There's still like kind of like a red element present in all of them, which I kind of like. I think I see red as like aggression, but passion and love at the same time. So I like when the dubstep has like a tasteful amount of red, not like the whole thing is just like all red. When it has like a lot of aggression and like the bass is blown way out of proportion, the production's shit. I'm not a big fan of that, which is why I love Subtronics' stuff so much, because the aggression very much comes out as passion in his kind of music, if that makes any sense. It's not like a bad red, it's a good red. I didn't know there was such thing as a bad red. How do I explain this? My brain is numb. Something that makes me quite sad though is seeing like the old school dubstep fans hate on the newer dubstep and rhythm. Like, yes, it's an entirely different sound, but it's also just as expressive. And right now we have so many talented artists who are putting their own twists on this kind of dubstep, which is just expanding the genre even more. I honestly think that's why I love dubstep so much. It's just such an open and creative place in the music industry, if you ignore all the elitists and the judgmental shits. But without them, it's very open, very loving community. Like, so many people hate on Skrillex for the dumbest reasons, even though he's changed the entire industry and continues to change the entire industry. He's not shit now because he makes different music. Like, he's expanding his creative capacity, and he's doing so much more for the industry than I think any of us really understand. Like, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Artists, they have a creative calling for a reason. They literally do whatever they want. They create. Like, just because something's different doesn't automatically make it bad. In the same way, like, having a music genre change doesn't mean the original's better. The better is subjective. It's up to you to decide if you like the original or the newer stuff more. Like, you don't have to put a label on it and make everybody follow that same label. What's better is an opinion in art and music. I've noticed this within all genres that have gone through a lot of change, especially like jungle, drum and bass, dubstep, techno, rock. Genres that have gone through a lot of change usually have the most people arguing over said change. It's interesting because what I think happens in elitist brain is the perfect example of how love and hate are basically the same emotion but just on opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, an elitist starts out as a lover of a specific genre, and then they fall in love with the music so much that they start getting the sense of fulfillment and validation from the music and community. They become attached to the feeling and effect that it gives them, especially those who feel outcasted in their regular lives, because that music and community becomes the only way that they feel seen and understood. So they learn everything there is to know about the genre, every little thing, because they almost pride themselves on how well they know this thing that makes them and other like-minded people happy. But as soon as change is introduced, as soon as they realize that their community isn't as like-minded as they thought, that's when they start hating. People in general are just so quick to hate change. Like, I don't know why we're like that. I don't know why we gotta hate on anything that we don't understand, but elitists are a dangerous territory because they've developed this really passionate connection to what they think the music should be. So seeing change get introduced into their community will just make them feel like an outsider all over again. So they talk shit. They take pride in knowing the real shit, the OG stuff, because all these posers, they don't get anything. I can't believe people actually listen to this, bring back the old, and that's how they end up becoming the genre's biggest haters. Like, there's nothing wrong with having your own opinions, but when you're going out of your way to talk about that and comment that in places where no one asked, you're just being a hater. Like, you really gotta love something in order to hate it, and oftentimes hate is a projection of love that comes from a hurt ego. So this makes a lot of sense to me in regards to elitists. Like, applying this to how my individuality complex led me to become this gross metalhead elitist, like, it checks out. I went over how that happened exactly within myself, and I unlearned all that BS. And now we're here, genuinely loving music again. Having this deep desire to fit in is something all people crave. It's just unfortunate that those who've been outcasted, they continue that cycle by outcasting others, which to their demise only outcasts them more in the end. Like, I know I'm being a bit of a hater myself by saying this, but I really dislike people who just share their negative opinions completely uncalled for. Only because I really dislike that part of myself, to be fair. And I know I can't judge others based on the way I judge myself, but objectively, if we look at Instagram comments on posts about music, what's the point of commenting stuff like, I don't listen to this garbage? Like, that's your hurt ego making a statement to put someone, if anybody, down because you're scared of being indifferent, or dare I say, irrelevant. oh well, the music is garbage though. So what? No one asked. Like, no one. Everyone has taste. Everyone has things they like and dislike. Your ability to judge doesn't make you special. Get a personality. That's a message to my younger self. But isn't it interesting how our ego can turn the things that we love into things we hate so quickly as an act of self-preservation? Like the lengths our minds go to rationalize uncomfortable situations to protect our ego from getting hurt. Like that's all our ego. The more insecurity you have, the stronger that ego, because you go about life getting hurt by a lot more than the average person. Your ego's always protecting itself against the smallest things. It's always easier to blame others or circumstances outside of ourselves. But the second we start being truthful to ourselves about our emotions and truthful about the root of our insecurities, life becomes just that much easier. No matter how negative an opinion you may truly have, you feel fulfilled enough from the inside. You no longer feel the need to put others down. The electronic music community is beautiful. There's so much creativity, it's limitless. It's so beautiful to create whatever you want to create and seeing people achieve their dreams. And I love how artists really push their creative boundaries in this community, especially those who like cross genres, like Subtronic's doing drum and bass now. Headaches dropping dubstep. Also recently saw Virtual Riot drop techno neuro bassline rhythm all in one set. Like, how can you hate on that? That's such a beautiful thing. I hate seeing communities arguing with one another, like techno and drum and bass, for example. Or with drum and bass getting more popular right now, there are so many people like screaming like, jungle's better, jump up is trash, listen to jungle, you posers. Flies across the sky, where it goes. Like, wouldn't it be boring if everyone just made the same thing and if over the years, like, the genre sounded exactly the same? Look at everyone! Just like fun, lighthearted energy. Things don't have to be so serious all the time. Oh, I got oil paint everywhere. This is me trying to paint, and then the wall is falling off there, the 2 pages. It's fine, I tried. Some people really hear jump up and they're like, listen to jungle, you posers. Like, okay. Like, they're 2 different genres and they're both beautiful in their own way. Artists innovate together, they inspire each other and build on existing ideas. If all genres sounded exactly the same as when they first started out, like that's just boring. Progression and change is very much necessary in art and anything in life. Even if you don't like something, like change is unavoidable. Like you're only hurting yourself by caring so much. You can have your own taste in music, but just don't force it on people. And don't comment on like artists' Instagrams being like, your old stuff used to be better. What, like, that's your subjective opinion and no one asked for it. What do you want the artist to do? Go back in time? They honestly couldn't care less about your opinion. That's why elitists get mad, because they're scared of being indifferent. They're scared of being outcasted in a community which they used to feel so loved and accepted in. If you know so much, then why aren't you as successful as them? I don't know. I truly believe all negativity stems from insecurity. Like, no matter how your brain rationalizes it, what you notice in the world around you is what you notice within yourself, or what you don't want to admit to yourself. But it's easier to admit that about other people rather than yourself, right? It's easy to call other people a failure than calling yourself a failure. And that was a really hard pill for me to swallow when I was going through that, because it was true. Every negative opinion I had and I'd say would ultimately be a reflection of my insecurities. So I find it very interesting when I see any negativity now, because like I see that you're so hurt that you have to say it in order to affirm it to yourself. Because you yourself are hurt and you can't handle the truth behind the mask that you put on. Yeah, I feel bad for all the elitists out there. It's just so sad seeing so much hate. I used to be like that and I really disliked that way of thinking that I had. It was so close-minded and I was so sad. I was such an annoying elitist. I was like the pure metalhead elitist. Because of the internet. I just want to bring more awareness to how beautiful being authentic to your own interests can be. Like, the second you start living life for yourself, everything seriously gets that much better. I know it's easier said than done, but you're only hurting yourself by being bitter and holding on to resentment. That's just my opinion. Glad that I'm in my lover era now. It's a lot better. The world's a lot brighter, a lot more colorful. Yeah. Actually, let me show you. I've only made one drum and bass sketch so far, like a little drum and bass depiction. This is the one that I have so far. Drum and bass, I see it as very green, honestly. It depends on the kind. This is like, this is specifically like original sin and Delinja kind of stuff.